Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I am your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Currently, my daughter and I are coaching one of the best AU teams in the country. Well, Piston fans, got a lot of topics to cover today. We're going to talk about if Bogey doesn't get traded, should he come off the bench? We're going to talk about a little more about the Rico Hines runs. We're also going to talk about Team USA. Is it possible that they need a couple of our Pistons on their squad? There might be a new rule affecting teams trying to do load management. So we're going to just talk about that briefly. And we're also going to talk about a couple lists that came out by Bleacher Report. And Cade Cunningham appears on both of them. And we're going to talk about how cool that is. So let's get started with Bogey off the bench. And so I talked last episode was really the main topic was that we need to trade Bogey so that we open up time and minutes for Ausar Thompson. And I still believe that's the case, but I do think that if we don't trade Bogey, that he would be great to come off the bench. To have that kind of firepower off your bench. The other huge advantage I think that it can't be denied is the fact that Bogey is a bad defender, and so if he's having to guard the other team's second team, then those players are not going to be as good offensively. The other thing about that is if Ausar starts at the three, he is going to be able to guard the top wings, and so there are so many good wings in this league. You know, Jason Tatum and Booker and Durant and Bridges. And there's just a million of them, and we don't have anybody that can match up with them except Ausar Thompson. And I know that's a lot to put on a rookie, and rookies are usually poor at defense. But my guesstimation is Ausar is going to come to camp and blow people away. I mean, I think they know and they've watched him, but I think that on my when I listen to podcasts all the time, and I have it on. On Spotify you can control the speed that you listen to it at. So I usually listen to it at like 1.2 times the normal speed, one being the normal speed of your voice. So he's going to play at a whole nother speed. I think this coaching staff is going to be put into position where this guy just does too many things on the court, again, with his passing and his rebounding and especially his elite defense. So I think that Bogey would make sense to have him come off the bench. Again, I think that I was a coach, and even at the high school level, there was still a real thing about the locker room, and there are certain players that demand respect. Bogey deserves respect; he's earned it, but that doesn't mean you hope they do what's best for the team. But sometimes you don't, because sometimes you don't want to negatively impact the locker room. So I think that Bogey and I think also that the coaching staff is just going to respect him because the way he's going to come to practice every day and play. And plus, he's elite. He's an elite scorer. And we're going to talk a little bit about that again later. He showed up on one of the lists. But I just hope that it happens. And obviously, the other chance is that they both could start. And then we could start Ausar at the 4 and Bogey at the 3. But of course those positions can be interchangeable. I mentioned this before that depending on the matchups, who's out on the court, and again out of the 3 and the 4, then you just have Bogey guard the weakest offensive player, and you have Ausar guard the better offensive player. And again, Ausar and Cade and Ivy and Duren, I think, are really good rebounders for their positions. So I don't think rebounding is going to be as big a thing as you might worry about with that. So the Rico Hines run was cool. Again, it's just brief clips. They play games to 7, so there's a couple games. But the thing that's still standing out is the chemistry between Cade and Duren, the pick and roll. That pick and roll is going to be unstoppable with Cade and Duren. Duren's setting great picks, and he's rolling, and Cade reads the defense so well and is able to deliver the pass right to him. And if they go behind the pick, Cade is knocking down the jumper. That shot, I did see him shoot one shot flat. I saw him shot one shot out of all the shots I've seen him shoot from the perimeter at Rico Hines or when he played with the select team. I only saw him one shot that looked like he did last year. So anyway, I don't think they're going to be able to go behind the screens because Cade is just knocking down those shots. the thing that I really love though, and I even more than the other Rico Hines runs, is Jaden Ivey's 3-point shot or pull-up jumper is so smooth. It's different. It's different than he shot it really well at the end of last year, the last month or more. But it's looking way smooth. It is so exciting for me to see the way he's shooting. He made this move. He got the ball in transition and he kind of went into a player and did the Euro step and the guy bumped him and then he still finished with a little left-handed flip. It was really a cool play. Um, so I think that there's some other real good plays where my favorite play of the whole Rico Hines run was when Cade comes down the court in transition. He nonchalantly throws it behind the back to Ivey, who's flying down the court, and Ivey catches on the move and he drives to the basket and he dumps it to Duren, and then Duren dumps a little bounce pass to Ausar for the dunk. I mean, it was beautiful. And Duren has made so many passes. There was a stretch in one of the games where he made three sweet assists where the ball just touches his hands. It's just right out of his hands, just a touch pass, and it bounces it to somebody, and he just sees things ahead of time, and he can deliver the ball. He did it 3 possessions in a row, and it looked really cool. And then we got Stu. He shot a step back jumper. He's dribbling the ball a little bit. He didn't get back behind the 3-point line, but it was still cool to see that he did the step back. So Team USA finished 4th in the FIBA World Cup, and we knew we didn't have our top players, but it just makes you think. We got killed on rebounds, and our defense was terrible, and so we gave up 110 or more points against every team that was halfway decent. We killed a lot of the weaker teams, but then we basically got beat by most of the good teams. But anyway, my question is, I know that Duren and Cade got to show off when they played on the select team how good they were, and it remains to be seen. I'm not saying I don't think there's a great chance, especially that Duren will get picked, but there are not a lot of big guys around. There's a debate whether we're going to try to recruit Embiid, but he can play for France, so that's going to be a big thing, the recruitment of Embiid. He can play for U.S. or he can play for France, or he doesn't, maybe not play for anybody, but we just got killed. I don't understand why everybody in the NBA is going small. Well, after watching these FIBA games, it makes you wonder because they pounded Team USA every time they got Reeves. They put him in the pick and roll and they just posted him up every time. But teams don't do that in the NBA, so that's another thing that like if when I was talking about Bogey guarding the 4, teams don't, Bogey's not going to be able to guard most 4s in the post, but teams don't take advantage of that. I don't know why. Maybe this will open some NBA teams' eyes and say maybe we can go a little bit bigger and punish teams on the boards. And Pistons have some players that can do that. I'm not saying that they're going to play 2 bigs and stuff, but other teams are going to have a hard time. And Team USA they had a lot of talent, Anthony Edwards and Mikal Bridges, those guys are really good, and Therese Halliburton. We had a lot of good players. The final game that we got when we lost to Canada, it was a tough one, and it was a close game, and we lost in overtime. But the play of the whole tournament was unbelievable. You should Google it if you haven't seen it. But Bridges is at the line, and we're down by 3, and he intentionally misses it. The ball kicks out to the side. He sprints and gets it. He dribbles it out to the corner, and at the buzzer, fires up a 3 and makes it to tie it to send it in overtime. But then Shea Gilgeous-Alexander took over in overtime, and we lost. But it was one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of great plays in basketball, but it was out of this world. And Luka did it this past regular season, but that shot by Bridges and missing that free throw was tremendous. But I know there's a lot of rumors. There's reports made by Shams and guys that LeBron's been talking on the phone to Steph and Anthony Davis and Jason Tatum and all these great players about playing in the Olympics because it's in France, and so a lot of the big guys, the superstars, they like to be seen in France. They like to go to France, and so now with our team finishing 4th, I think there's a chance. So there might not be many spots open for Cade or Duren, but there's not many big guys to choose from. There's Bam and a few other guys, so we will see what happens. But it would be fun if Cade makes it. I think he impressed everybody to no end, and he's big and strong and physical and can rebound. So there is a chance that that could happen. So I think that again we can talk about real briefly. We're going to talk about the top. Bleacher Reports puts out a lot of lists, and it's interesting and fascinating. And I think they do it because they get a rise out of people, and so a lot of people, there's a lot of interest. And then I even think that intentionally they might leave guys off lists because it gets people reading them and people talking about them on podcasts like mine or better podcasts than mine, or that are more listened than mine. They might not be better, but they have more listeners. But anyway, so Bleacher Reports put out this list of the top 10 stars of the next 5 years. So that's not necessarily the top 10 leading contributors this season, or it's not even considering the most valuable players in 2027, 2028, which is at the end of the 5 years. What it's talking about the people in totality over the next 5 years who are going to have the biggest impact. And so this is interesting. Honorable mentions were Embiid, DeAndre Fox, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, John Morant. So those guys are just honorable mentions. And players considered were LaMelo, Banchero, Barnes, Jaylen Brown, Halliburton, Chet, Zion, Trae Young. So these guys, none of those guys made the list. So number 1 is Luka, who I'm going to have this podcast about Luka sometime, but he is a great player. He is undeniably a basketball savant. He is out of this world, but he has things, he doesn't get back on defense. He's crying all the time. So they're playing in the game that they got eliminated in. He got a second technical, and so he's out of the game because he's always crying, and he'll cry about every foul, and he does get fouled, but then he doesn't run back on defense, and the game is still going on, and his team is playing 4-on-5. And I know one basketball guy said that he's the worst transition defender in NBA history, but I don't know if he was saying that tongue-in-cheek. But anyway, Jokic is number 2, Jason Tatum's number 3, and some of these can be debated. Giannis is number 4. I would flip those two. There's some controversy. Victor was picked 5, and obviously you're projecting into the future with Victor. Anthony Edwards is 6, and he broke out. He had a great FIBA tournament and got a lot of hype, and he is a very, very talented guy. Shea, number 7, and Shea, again, he dominated Team USA. He was dominant throughout the whole tournament, so he's really good. Scoot Henderson. So again, that's projection, but there's a reason people have that they picked him. And Devin Booker, I love him, and I think he is just tremendous, is number 9. And Arcade Cunningham, number 10, and it's still he's last on the list. But I'm telling you, look at all those great players that were picked above him. So this writer, and again, it's just one person's opinion. Nobody knows, and there's no crystal ball. But the guy does have knowledge, and some people, especially on Twitter, they put out stuff that's kind of goofy sometimes. And some Piston podcasters say some pretty silly things, I think, sometimes. But anyway, this having Cade on this list and seeing that he can be that good of a player, and everybody always says he has to stay healthy. I don't think that's going to be a problem. But one thing that they noticed is that he's improved, and that his release point on his shot, and if it sticks during the regular season, he's going to be unstoppable. And again, I talked about this. So I talked about it during the season, that it was my biggest concern and the biggest change, that he needed to release the ball higher, and that therefore he would get more arc on his shot, and just even a little bit more arc would make all the difference in the world on his shot. And I think that that's happening. So there was another list about the top 100 players, and I can just tell you that there's great players in the NBA. There's more than 100 great players. So Ivy was honorable mention. So that tells you that Ivy and Shaden Sharp and Brandon Miller, those are 3 young great players. Bogey was 94. He was tied with Benedict Mathurin, and Mathurin had a good rookie year, but Bogey was tied for number 94. But here's the thing about Bogey. So there were 13 players who averaged 20 points or more and had an effective field goal percentage of .570. And Bogey was one of the 13. Of the other 12 players, they all finished in the top 33. And here's Bojan Bogdanovic is in 94. And it is all because of his defense. So again, that is a reason maybe possibly to trade him, even though I still think he would be an asset to the team. But again, I talked about this last episode. I'm not going to go into it too much, but we need to just open up time for Ausar. But he is a weak defender. That's another reason, like I spoke out about at the beginning of the podcast, about him guarding other teams' second unit players, where he won't be torched as bad. So 92, number 92 on the list was Keegan Murray, who is looking really good. I think he's going to have even a better year than last year. R.J. Barrett, who gets paid a lot of money, was 91. Marcus Smart, he just got traded, number 71. And Michael Porter tied for 71. 69, Austin Reeves, who was fabulous at the end of the season for the Lakers in the FIBA games. 59, Fred VanVleet, number 59. He just got a max contract. 53, Scotty Barnes, and he, was Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. Franz Wagner, who tore it up for the world champion German team. Franz was, I think, their best player, even though another guy got the MVP. But anyway, Middleton was number 50, who's a great player. Draymond, 49. LaMelo's 48. Zach LaVine, who's unbelievable, is 44. Porzingis 43. DeRozan 42. Evan Mobley 41. Banchero Rookie of the Year 40. And Cade Cunningham number 39. And so that's a lot of respect for Cade. And it's he's a tough ball handler. They said, with the ability to rise and separate into pull-ups. Again, his pull-up jumper was just out of this world at the last 8 games he played last year. He's can bully smaller defenders, but his passing is equally as impressive as his offense. And they think that now that he has, besides the 3-level scoring, he has Ivy and Ausar and Duren and Bogey that give him quality shot makers and athletic targets that he can. I think his passing is going to really step up. Just after him is Darius Garland, 38, and he was an all-star. Drew Holiday, who's a great player, was 37. Brunson was 36. Sabonis, all-star, 35. Beal, 34. Halliburton, who I love, is 33. So again, a lot of respect paid to Cade Cunningham. So real quick, I'm going to go. I think they're going to vote Wednesday, tomorrow. Today is Tuesday, and tomorrow the NBA Board of Directors is going to vote on trying to make a stronger rule so that teams cannot rest. The Board of Governors, they're going to try to stop teams from resting 2 stars at the same time. So this is what Popovich would always do. Popovich would rest Duncan and Parker and all of his best players all the same day. And I've seen when LeBron was at Miami, they would rest D-Wade and LeBron and Bosh all the same day. And I've seen other teams do the same thing where they rest everybody against the same opponent at the second day of a back-to-back. So that's what they're going to do. And it's going to be interesting if teams can say, well, I got tickets to the Suns game this year, and I'm worried because when I ordered my tickets, I didn't check to see if it was a back-to-back, but it is. And so now they're playing the Pistons, who aren't considered to be great, and they could rest Durant and Booker and Beal all, the same game. And that would be no fun to watch, when you're paying extra money to go see those stars play. So it will be interesting to see. I did look to see, because I'm going to probably go to see the Spurs, and I think they're going to be really careful with Victor. And so, but Victor, the Spurs do not have a game the night before they play the Pistons. So there's a good chance that he will play against the Pistons. So anyway, we went over a lot of topics today, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast enough to subscribe. It takes just a click, and leave a thumbs up. And if you listen on Spotify, leave a 5-star rating, and be the reason that somebody feels loved or valued or cared for. And go Pistons!